Alrighty, everybody. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to another live. We are going to be doing ourselves a bit of an update here for you guys on the weather. It's been a day or so since we last talked about essentially what's going on here. We actually have another winter storm coming up from the way that the models have been looking here. As well as a few things we are also going to go over here in the stream. But anyways, y'all, hope everyone's having a fantastic evening. Hope everyone is doing good. But yeah, so like I said, we have a little bit of a winter storm coming up here. But first, I'm going to get into it here in a second. I want to wait till everybody joins here. What's up, Squashy? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. And so yeah, we're going to talk about the models and stuff here in a second. But anyways, one thing I do want to go ahead and show y'all. Actually, we've been having some pretty bad fires down in Florida here. I do want to bring this up real quickly. Looking at the current sat view, we'll actually go back to we'll go to the geo color, right? So if we go back in time a little bit, you can actually see Southwest Florida has been seeing some pretty heavy fires. Apparently, these actually been going on for a couple of days here. But it's definitely pretty crazy. I figured I'd mention that here just while everybody joins. What's up, Brogy? Good to see you. Saying, oh my, I'm ready for spring already. I know a lot of people are for sure. A lot of people are, including myself. I'm tired of this cooler air getting involved and all that stuff. I'm just ready for the springtime. I'm ready for things to warm up, and I'm ready for storm season, honestly. Really excited for that. But anyways, speaking of storm season, actually, I do want to show you guys here. We do have a bit of storm activity popping off here for Nebraska and Kansas. We actually have a severe weather threat here for today. These storms are relatively expected to be pretty elevated, meaning really, really tall bases of the storm. So the storm base, the bottom of the storm is going to be pretty tall, which really kind of throws out any tornadic concern, which is good. However, we do have a threat for severe weather today. Let's bring up today's day one outlook here. We do have a marginal risk in place, which we're going to overlay that at the top. So you can see that includes bits of southwestern Nebraska here. I'm going to take off the shades here. But bits of southwestern Nebraska, including McCook, Holdridge, Sidney, and a little bit here of extreme northwestern Kansas is involved here in the severe weather threat as well. Doesn't really show many areas listed. Like Atwood, we have Norton, see Phillipsburg, Oberlin. These areas are in that level 1 threat. But like I said, these storms are going to be relatively elevated today, meaning that the storm bases are going to be pretty tall, which would really kind of remove any tornado threat. I don't think we're going to have much of that being a concern. If we look at the day one tornado risk, you can see that there's nothing there, which is good. However, if we look at the damaging wind risk, we do have a 5% shot for damaging winds. Could see some gusts upwards of 60 miles per hour within the storms here for today. And then lastly, in terms of hail, we do not have any hail threat. So this is really just a strict only damaging wind environment here. And obviously looking at the latest satellite imagery, you can see that we have, it looks to be a little bit of convection trying to kick off here. If we look at radar, we're talking pretty light echoes here. Really not seeing anything super crazy with these storms as of right now. There is a little bit of lightning detection in them, but they're really not doing a whole lot at the moment. Which is obviously good. And looking at our dew points here from the MEDAR data, this really just proves to you that these storms are elevated. These dew points are in the lower 30s. Which is way too low for any typical normal convection, for any typical storm system that would fire off here. But like I said, these storms are definitely elevated. While the surface isn't really in prime conditions for deep convection or really, these normal type of storms, while that's not in place, the mid-levels are really supportive. I do want to bring up the models here. Let's hop over here to the models real quickly. Let's check up on the environment here. I do want to bring up the RRFS model here, which we have the 22 Zulu run rendering. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of everything on here. We do have the 22 Zulu model rendered for the most part, at least for this part of the event. which we could see, maybe a little bit of convection popping off here. A little bit of a severe weather threat, like we mentioned. Let's grab a sounding here from the environment. Really not a good environment here. I'm not even gonna lie with you guys here. Let me try to grab some ahead of this. Yeah, very, really pretty strong warm layer there. Yeah, not really a good environment for storms here. Let me try the instability. We'll pull up just so we can kind of really pinpoint where this is at. We'll do thermodynamics. We'll do most unstable cape here. So this will show us where a lot of our instability is. I think a lot of the event is probably over with. Here, let's go back a little bit. Yeah, honestly, I really wonder why they put a threat here. I mean, like, there's really not a whole lot of instability here. I mean, you can see there's some instability in the mid levels here and some soundings, but the dew point depression on the surface is astronomical. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really, really interesting. I mean, I see the damaging wind potential in that. Anyways, but yeah, so I mean, I really don't expect much out of these, to be honest with you. But that's not why we're here. That's not why we're here this evening. The main reason we're here is talking about winter weather. We do have ourselves maybe a little bit of a winter weather threat coming up here. So let's hop on over into that. We'll pull up our winter here. Winter tab, we'll go to precipitation type and reflectivity. So we're going to need to hop over to global models. Since this is in the long range here, we'll pull up the 18 Zulu GFS. So first things first, we actually have a little clipper system. This is not the system we're mainly talking about, but maybe a little bit of snow involved here, for tomorrow being Thursday up across maybe Kentucky, West Virginia, just a little bit of snow possible here. This is the American GFS, but that's not the main reason that we're here. So we work our way down in time later on, and you can actually see, boom, right there. So this is right around March 1st, when we could see maybe another little winter storm here. This could kick up across the Central Plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, according to the GFS. So obviously, with any system, you're going to want some confidence, right? So let's hop over to another model. We'll pull up the Euro, the ECMWF, and boom, it shows the system. Although it looks a little different, it's still there, which is a good sign, indicating that the system will likely exist. It's just the models need to kind of figure out what it's going to look like. But yeah, I mean, models, they're there here. Well, I'll even pull up a side-by-side comparison. I know it's good to do this here. We'll have Euro on the left here. And we'll have the American GFS on the right. So let's go ahead and do that real quickly. So let's bring up GFS on the right here. So we'll do that, and we'll add, precipitation type. There we go. So you can see the, there is obviously a little bit of a difference here. So the GFS is a bit more aggressive and a lot bigger, you can see. The GFS has the system, extending all the way from central Missouri through Illinois, through Indiana, through Ohio, bits of Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Then, of course, you have the Euro at this time. So I should mention this is for 1 a.m. on Monday, which is the 2nd. And you can actually see that, the Euro is mostly for Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. Meanwhile, the GFS was a little bit longer, a bit more wide in terms of the system size here. Now, one thing I will mention is that maybe there could even be maybe a little bit of ice included with this. That is one thing I'm starting to notice, is that, both models to an extent maybe show a little bit of freezing rain, maybe a little bit of sleet. Now, given the models here, this is about 90 to 110 hours out or so, which, it's within reasonable, forecasting range. And, like I mentioned, of course, given the fact that, both of the main models do support this system, that's a good sign. Now, I do want to bring up the main panel that we have. We've actually showed this a lot in the previous winter storms we've been covering here, but let's bring up our precip comparison. We have 5 different models here, and so it's obviously good to have, the more models, the merrier. And what do you know? Literally, hold on a minute. Why is this all the GFS? I was gonna say they all look very similar, but hold on a minute, something ain't right here. Something ain't right here. Let's unsync the models. Maybe this will work. Try to reload it. Ah, there we go. Okay, there we go. Well, now they're all AI GFS. What's going on here? Hold on a minute. I might need to reload this again. Don't know what's going on there. All right, we'll get rid of that. So now they should work. There we go. All right, so we got the American GFS top left. We got the Euro in the top middle. We got the GIM GDPS, the Canadian model, in the top right. AI GFS bottom left, and the ECMWF Euro AIFS, so the AI model for Euros in the bottom right. So, I mean, all models are there. You know, they all show this system to an extent, and like I mentioned, there is some models that do show maybe a little bit of freezing rain, maybe a little bit of sleet mixing in, which that's really where the big concerns come from. I mean, snow is, snow is far more safer than ice, than freezing. I mean, none of it's really safe, but, when comparing freezing rain and sleet to snow, they don't even compare. I mean, because ice is just, pure slickness, no friction. It's just complete slick. So if there's going to be a lot of freezing rain and sleet involved, obviously this is going to be a big problem. But, we'll have to see. I mean, there is obviously tons of disagreement here between the models, but, they do tend to kind of show that the system here could definitely, maybe hold a bit of that ice. So we'll have to see. But anyways, so in terms of the timing of the system, like I mentioned, this is going to be kicking off here for March 1st, going into obviously March 2nd here. And it should be out by March 3rd for the most part. Yeah, it should be out by March 3rd. So this will be between between the 1st and the 3rd of March. So we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop here. We'll be giving you guys probably multiple updates on this system. There is a lot of work that the models need to kind of, work out here, essentially. But anyways. Let's see here. But if you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. We'll be more than happy to help you guys if y'all have any questions. If there's anything specific that you'd like me to look at on the models or whatever, just let us know. I'll be more than happy to help. Here, I'm actually going to pull up the GIM here. We're going to get rid of some of these other models. We'll remove every model but the GIM for a moment. My tripod's in the way, which is making this extremely difficult for you to see. All right, so let's put this here. We're just going to full panel the GDPS model. Anyways, let's see here. Here we go. GIM. It should work for some reason. Of course, now it's not wanting to work on me. Here, let's try that again, maybe. Well, I was going to look at the GIM or the GDPS, but it decided it wants to do otherwise. But anyways, yeah, we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop with everything. Here, let me just reset this. Maybe that'll work if I can reload it. But models, they're a little bit in a disagreement mode still, exactly what the storm could look like. But they do agree on the fact that there is likely going to be a system there between the 1st and the 3rd of March, in which there definitely could be some sleet and some freezing rain involved, which would definitely be a bit of a problem. All right, let's bring back. Here we go. So here's GFS. Well, let's bring up the GDPS model. Here we go. Here's the Canadian model. So, yeah, Canadian model also agrees, with the ice, and kind of showing that here this is for the morning of Monday, showing a bit of the ice across like central Illinois, central southern Indiana, maybe southern Ohio. It's too early to tell for sure that, these will be the areas. If you look at the GFS, you can see a totally different scenario. Still, maybe a little bit of ice included, but a lot of snow. And also, it seems like the storm's more advanced further in time than what the GFS than the Canadian model. It seems like the GFS has pushed a little bit further ahead. But then you can still see that, GFS does support, maybe some freezing rain, some sleet. So that is something we really need to look out there for. So obviously it's too early for accumulations. If I gave you guys any numbers, it would be totally different by the time that we approach the system's existence. So we're gonna hold off tonight on totals because, like I said, it would just be random numbers at this point. So we're not gonna do that tonight. But anyways, I definitely need our folks in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic here. You know what? I think there's something going on with my chat for some reason because I can't see any messages. Hold on, let me pull it up on my phone here. Maybe there's something going wrong because it's got to be. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Here, let me. Can y'all chat? Like, does it let y'all chat in the thing here? I don't know why. Because not even Nightbot's loading for some reason. That's what's got me a little bit iffy on it. Hold on a minute, y'all. Let me check real quick. Let me make sure that everything is good to go. Yeah, because it's like I said, not even Nightbot's wanting to load here, so I don't know if it's that or yeah. No, it seems like everything should be fine. Yeah, y'all, if you could let me know. I don't know if Nightbot's down or what's going on. Oh, there we go, Squashy. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know what's going on with Nightbot. Nightbot slacking on the job, man. I tell you. But anyways, but yeah, like I said, we'll definitely just keep you guys in the loop here. We might even have some storms actually coming up for Florida here. I'm actually a little bit excited about that. Well, actually, let's hop over here. We'll pull up the instability. We'll pull up our mix layer cape here. So this is our instability in the atmosphere. And the good news is that, well, for storm lovers, we're starting to get some more instability kind of tracking closer, or just kind of pulling up because essentially we had that low or that cold front that rolled through. It really brought in the continental air mass, pushed all of the moisture out of the country. And, since that air mass has weakened a bit, we're going to start to see withdrawal here of, a lot of the moisture, and it eventually would lead to some instability and stuff. Leading back into the country. But yeah, definitely Saturday could be a storm day for Florida. We'll have to keep an eye out there for that. You still see little bits of instability here and there. Going through Friday, maybe bits of the deep south could see maybe some storms, which we'll definitely have to see. I think the GDPS should be able to pull this up. Or sorry, not the GDPS, the RRFS. Should be able to pull this up because this is a high resolution model here, which should make it look a little bit better. Yeah, so there you go. So this is for Thursday afternoon and evening. According to this model, you can see that, even the HRRR should be able to pick up on this here. But it does show that we have a bit of, instability available here for portions like Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. Here, let me compare that with the HRRR. Like I said, it's good to have comparison. So here we go. So going to Thursday. Yeah, so there is instability there. Let me pull up a comparison. I'm just gonna do the half panel again. Well, for both models. So we'll have the HRRR on the left, and we'll have the RRFS on the right. So that way we'll have two of really good models, two high-res models. There we go. So RRFS on the right and HRRR on the left. Now I am going to sync these runs here. That way they're both the 18 UTC runs. Because of the long runs here we should have. But they do look a little bit different in terms of how much instability and where the instability is going to be. But look at this, 4 p.m. on Thursday. The models do show a little bit of instability, a little bit of unstable air involved. The HRRR showing far less amounts of instability than the RRFS model here. So there is a bit of a disagreement with that here. Let's actually overlay the. Let's go ahead and overlay the future radar or the composite reflectivity here. So you can see that we very well could see a bunch of scattered storms involved here. Now, do I think it'll be a severe weather threat? Let me grab some soundings. We're going to pull up a sounding here for Central Alabama, 4 p.m. on Thursday from the HRRR. Let's see what this model suggests. So HRRR. Okay, so that looks like a fairly decent environment here from what I'm looking at right off the bat. I mean, first thing I notice is our dew points on the surface, lower 60s. Some pretty good moisture being supplied to these storms here. There's really no capping inversion either. I mean, there's not that much of a cap in place, which is good. So storms, normal storms should be able to convect freely. Equilibrium level. So pretty much where the atmosphere reaches equilibrium, basically where the rising air parcel stops, because the temperature of the rising air meets, that's a new word. The temperature of the rising air, equals the temperature. Let me try to re-explain. I'm not the best explaining. So the rising air, the temperature of the rising air equals the temperature of the air around it, essentially. So it equals, it reaches an equilibrium in which, we stop, the air stops rising, because it just all becomes the same temperature. But anyways, so, pretty decent, pretty normal top thunderstorms here, but yeah, decent little environment here. Wind shear, on the other hand, lower level shear isn't anything impressive. So I don't see anything really concerning with that. However, a mid-upper level shear, it's really important. This will help separate the storm's downdrafts from the updrafts, and help keep things nice and neat. And yeah, doesn't look like that bad of an environment here, honestly. There's good amounts of moisture, enough wind shear. I think in an environment like this, we could see, I don't really see much tornadic potential here, per se, but I do see possibly a bit of a concern for maybe some gusty winds or so. That could be a little bit of a concern. Anyways, let's compare this, though. So we grabbed it in Central Alabama. Let's grab pretty much the same area, right? We'll grab one right here by Tuscaloosa, this time from the RRFS model. That way we have a little bit of variety here. All right, so one thing I noticed is that, models are on point with the surface moisture. Dew points in the lower 60s. Both showing 62 degrees Fahrenheit, which that's good. That's a pretty good amount of moisture. It does show a relative unstable environment, from lower levels all the way up to, above 9 kilometers or so. So, it's, again, decent little environment. Wind shear is the strongest on the mid-levels. Lower-level shear is not really that strong. So that's good. That's good. I don't think this would be much of a tornado threat. For tornadoes, you really want some strong lower levels. You want some veering, basically just change in wind directions and wind speed with the altitude. You really want to have change in the lower atmosphere, and we're not really seeing a whole lot. Matter of fact, our storm relative helicity is pretty low. So I don't see much of a tornado threat. I'm not saying no tornado threat. If anything, it's going to be a weak tornado threat. But I don't see anything big, per se, with this. Anyways, honestly, really not that much different of an environment. We do have some pretty steep lapse rates. I ain't going to lie. There's some parts of the atmosphere where the temperature drops off pretty quickly with altitude. So basically, as you go up in altitude, every kilometer at different levels, the temperature drops off a good 7 degrees Celsius, which is like a lot more Fahrenheit, which, definitely is, dropping pretty good. And, lapse rates really has a strong effect on the CAPE, or the convective available potential energy, just the instability in the atmosphere, essentially. So lapse rates definitely help correlate to CAPE. Now, there's more things that feed into CAPE. It's not strictly just relapse rates. Other things like moisture really plays a role in it as well. For CAPE values and stuff. But anyways, I'm getting too off the rails here. I'm not trying to make things too confusing. But bottom line, a decent environment. I think that there could be some storms. If anything, weak tornadic activity. I don't think it's going to be the main concern. I think damaging wind gusts could be the main thing here, which we'll definitely have to see how things play out here. But overall, models do show a pretty unstable environment for the south. One thing I do notice here is that the HRRR kind of shows a line you can see extending through the Carolinas into Georgia. Meanwhile, the RRFS on the right here shows maybe just a bunch of scattered storms here. Two different modes, a linear system with the HRRR and a multicellular system with the RRFS. Two different storm modes could mean different outcomes for severe weather and stuff. So it's very important. Yeah, I mean, eventually it looks like the RRFS comes on board with maybe somewhat of a line segment trying to develop here, but it seems like a lot of scattered convection. So, anyways, bottom line here, from the way it looks, Thursday is going to be a bit of a stormy day here, I believe. And then, of course, we go into Friday. Then Florida could be seeing some storms, and mostly Saturday. I think Saturday would be a bit of a stormy day for Florida. It seems like we're going to have a bit of instability, available and all that. It's actually removed the HRRR now. That we can look a little bit further into the RRFS model here. So let me pull this up here. Let me actually move this. I need to fix my tripod. It's in the way. I can hardly see. Anyway, so yeah, we can go a little bit further with the RRFS model, in which you can see that we do build in a pretty decent amount of instability here for Saturday. It's looking like more of a typical spring or summer day in Florida on Saturday. Good amounts of instability potentially here. You can obviously see some cells trying to fire off here. Let me grab a little sounding here. Just to kind of see what we're looking like. So a pretty dry mid-level atmosphere, perhaps could support some hail growth. Lower level kinematics are absolute garbage. I ain't gonna lie. I don't think there'd be any tornadic event. This is a typical Florida setup here. I ain't gonna lie. Mid-upper level winds are mid-level shears, meh. Upper level shears, decent. But I tell you what, though, there is a good amount of instability, a good amount of cape here. Which that is good for storms, and I do think that there could be some real attempts at some decent storm structures here. But if that wind shear is a little stronger, then it could be a lot more of a concern. But typical Florida setup, I believe. But yeah, dew points mid-60s, good amount of surface moisture. There's a bit of a gap between your temperature and your dew point. We call this the dew point depression. The more greater your dew point depression, the lower the humidity is on the surface, or just whatever altitude you're looking at. I'm looking at surface here, but which could also be an enhancement for damaging wind gusts. Matter of fact, having a high dew point depression could definitely be good for damaging winds. D cape, the downwards cape here, is pretty decent. 1,000 joules per kilogram, almost 1,100. I think that maybe, just maybe, on Saturday there could be maybe a little bit of a damaging wind threat. So we'll have to see. I think that would be most of the threat. Maybe some hail. I think hail, maybe some damaging winds could be possible on Saturday. We're gonna have to see. Like I said, we'll just continue to watch it. But overall, bottom line, the environment looks pretty decent here. Definitely looks really decent, and that dry mid levels could definitely help support some hail growth and stuff. But anyways, we'll definitely look out for it, and definitely several storms firing off here across Florida on Saturday. Here, let's actually backtrack. We're gonna go to the 12 Zulu run. I obviously want to compare runs here, just to see how much they look. Okay, so actually Friday we get a little bit of convection in South Florida. Yeah, it's weird because, there we go. Okay, I was going to say, it looks a little different. But yeah, Saturday, yeah, pretty much same thing. It honestly seems like, what I'm noticing here, this might be a bit of a sea breeze system, which would induce some lift. And what I mean by that is basically a thing in Florida, not just Florida, but Florida really has sea breeze type of events here. So basically what's going on is as the sun comes out, it heats up the surface, and this causes the air to rise. So this rising air is rising, lifting air molecules off the ground, which lowers the pressure. Okay, so obviously, pressure flows from high to low. So the higher pressure that's out in the water tends to flow from the high to the low. So it pushes inland. So basically, we get these kind of long lines of air that's coming in from the oceans, in which we call these sea breezes. And which the thing is about sea breezes is they act like miniature cold fronts. They do. They kind of have a little bit of a sharp edge to them, meaning that they're kind of scooping up the warm air So as the sea breeze moves inland, it kind of scoops up the warm air and forces it upwards. And whenever you force warm air into a cold environment, that air wants to rise, in which that is a good source of lift. So that's actually one of the key components in storms and severe weather in general, is lift. Getting the warm air on the surface to the upper levels. Because in some severe weather event, if you have no lift, you're not going to achieve much storms. While the environment is conditionally unstable, if you don't have lift, you're not going to get much storm activity. Actually, you would get none if you didn't have any lift. Which, typical Florida, though. This is very common. I mean, this happens literally like every day in the spring and summertime of Florida. That's why we get so many storms, because there's always a force of lift, in the environment here, for Florida, which is, yeah, that's why we get a whole bunch. And obviously obviously Florida has tons of moisture, as well. So tons of moisture, always a source of lift. Just even the extreme effects of uneven heating as well. Not necessarily just sea breezes, but, basically the sun's effects, heating up some spots more than others allows for some of the air to just naturally rise and could spark some updrafts and stuff like that, getting storms to fire off as well like that. So that's why we get usually a whole bunch of scattered pop-up storms. It's probably usually mostly because of, uneven heating and stuff. But then the sea breezes kind of come through and sweep out the rest. But anyway, I'm getting way too far into it. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I apologize. But anyways, so yeah, Saturday I think could be a pretty decent day for Florida in terms of storms. The sea breeze type of event. You can see how we have convergence here. You can actually see kind of where the leading edge of the sea breezes would be, and then the next frame you can see how the instability kind of crumbles in on central Florida, because the sea breezes are kind of sweeping up some of that instability. Anyways, but yeah, so that is that. We'll I could literally talk for hours just on sea breezes and stuff, which is super cool, super cool. Type of phenomenon here, but it's very common, very common. Anyways, but yeah, so for the South, Friday, Saturday, got some storms coming in, so we'll definitely likely keep an eye out there for that. We will keep an eye out there for that. I'll obviously, give you guys more updates on everything. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So maybe some storms here Friday, Saturday. Maybe some severe weather. We'll have to see. And then, of course, like I mentioned, from the 1st to the 3rd of March, kind of in the long range, we have that little bit of a winter concern, in terms of winter weather through the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, maybe the Mid-Atlantic Northeast. Still need to fine-tune. The models still need to talk it out. They're still in a pretty good amount of disagreement here. So they need to talk it out a little bit more. And once they do, we'll give you guys more updates. And, as we get closer, then I'll give you guys, some snowfall maps and stuff like that. It's too early for all that right now. But one thing is, I just want to let you all know that we're watching some. There's something on the radar here, so we'll keep an eye out there for that. Anyways, I guess that's pretty much it. Although I will tell you though, like I mentioned, with the winter weather coming up, there is some model support suggesting not just snow, perhaps maybe even some ice. Like sleet and freezing rain could be involved, which I hope not. But just because of how impactful that stuff is, but from the way that the guidance is suggesting as of now, it seems possible. It seems possible. Anyways, everybody, well, if y'all have any questions, go ahead and throw them down in the chat before I roll off here. But yeah, I just wanted to hop on here for a little bit, pretty short little live stream, and there's no reason to be live for super long time. If you guys want to rewatch this, just rewind it, go back to the beginning. But yeah, we pretty much went over everything we really need to here, with this system. So bottom line is we have a little bit of storm activity coming up for the South Friday, Saturday. And then, of course, the winter weather coming up here for the 1st going into the 3rd, which I think, let's see, the 1st is on Sunday. Sunday through, so next Sunday this Sunday to Tuesday is when we're going to be having that winter weather kind of pop up here. So anyways, well, if y'all have any questions, let us know. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We'd greatly appreciate it. And maybe if y'all could leave a like on your way out as well. It'll be much appreciated here. But anyways, I'll give you guys more of an update here on everything tomorrow. We'll hop back on here for a while tomorrow to give you guys some more updates on the on the weather situation here. Between the storms and of course between the winter weather and stuff like that. But alrighty, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. And we'll see you guys here later on tomorrow. All right, everybody. Take care. Y'all have a great rest of your night. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.